Don't let them trick you into getting your ass whooped again.
We have a special guest here today. We'll be bringing him in.
I'm here to support my my boxer.
No Floyd Mayweather. Why not Floyd Mayweather? Why isn't he in the top five?
Floyd Mayweather, he's running the whole 12 rounds and he won the fight. How is that? I mean, you know, I feel sorry to the fans because the fight is boring. You know, the fight is boring. Like
He's older than me. I'm still young, so what I have done and accomplished in boxing, I think it's one of a kind because to get a different weight division is not that easy. And I'm not trying to boast what I have accomplished in life, but I'm just saying this to repeat. They might forget that the best fighter in the world has a humility.
I'm not here to talk about your personal life. When we talk about, you know, what's going on inside that square circle.
Even after 10 years since their fight of the century, Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao have some silent beef as he interrupted a conference to shove Manny Pacquiao violently. It initially looked like he was playing, but he did that and left where Pacquiao was and never came back to him again.
Sitting, John, right across the court from each other, Mayweather right next to the heat bench, Pacquiao, personal friend of Eric Spoelstra, right across from the bench, Spo noting that they had a chance to visit before the game. Well, that's a visit right there. Those are two men that allegedly have exchanged some information.
Clearly, it was shocking to see him act that way in a period where Manny Pacquiao was getting congratulatory messages and handshakes from other professionals. However, rumors have it that a particular statement made by Manny Pacquiao was what pissed him off. But that didn't stop him from getting some insults from fans. I feel Floyd Mayweather has done more harm to boxing than good. He's the reason for the obsession with money and less drive for impact and legacy. He's also the reason why guys would rather preserve an undefeated record than fight the best. This makes absolutely no sense, a fan wrote in the comments.
How would you describe your career? How would you describe your career?
my career. I don't want to raise my own chair.
Manny, who are the top 5 fighters you ever fought, you think?
Another added, Floyd Mayweather is great in the ring, but out of it, he is as random and irresponsible as a helpless pauper. Well, the statement Manny Pacquiao made was during an interview where he answered questions on which fighters gave him the hardest and most memorable fights. Initially, he struggled with ranking them, but when asked to rattle off the best, he thought long and hard before giving his answer. Marco Antonio Barrera, Eric Morales, Juan Manuel Marquez, De La Hoya, Miguel Cotto, Pacquiao said to several reporters recently.
Barrera, Morales, Marquez, De La Hoya, Cotto, what else? Cotto, Margarito.
Why no Floyd Mayweather? Why?
The names he rattled off are all Hall of Famers, but in the end it's all conjecture. However, noticeably left off his list was Floyd Mayweather. Viewed as arguably the best of his era and undoubtedly in the greatest of all time conversation, Mayweather beat Pacquiao via unanimous decision in May 2015. The two forced us to wait years to see them clash. When it finally happened, by and large, it was viewed as mundane and lackluster. It's that reason and that reason alone why he refuses to name him as one of the best he's ever faced. Floyd Mayweather was running the whole 12 rounds and he won the fight, Pacquiao said. How is that? I felt sorry for the fans. The fight was boring. That's not what the fans were expecting from us.
Fight is boring. Like that's not the fans are expecting to us. I mean, as a fighter, if I'm a fan, of course I want to see a good fight, like changing fight, not a fashion show.
Is that rematch still in
right? We need action. Like.
Let's get a question from Christopher.
And this was what must have pissed Mayweather off. Regarding his fight with Floyd Mayweather in 2015, Manny Pacquiao said a right shoulder injury prevented him from fighting at his best in his loss to Floyd Mayweather. Nevada officials also denied Pacquiao's request to take an anti-inflammatory shot in his dressing room before the fight Saturday night. The chairman of the Nevada Athletic Commission said the ruling was Pacquiao's fault for not mentioning his injury sooner. "It's part of the game," Pacquiao said.
There's no problem.
So go back to before the Mayweather fight. Just take us back through what happened to your shoulder. Was it about 3 weeks before when you tore your rotator cuff?
My shoulder has been bothering me since 2009, and then I just handle it.
I don't want to make alibis or complain or anything, but it's hard to fight one-handed. Pacquiao trainer Freddie Roach and promoter Bob Arum were vague on the details of the injury, but confirmed they considered postponing the bout a few weeks ago. "I thought he fought a courageous fight under all the circumstances, and I'm very proud of what he accomplished tonight," Arum said. Pacquiao got hurt sometime after mid-March, and Arum said the injury was the same as the one Kobe Bryant had. Bryant tore his rotator cuff in January, ending his season with the Los Angeles Lakers.
And then I just handle it every training. But it just happened on that Mayweather training. We push harder than any training that we had in the past. So that's what happened. I got hurt, and then but we actually managed that after maybe 2 weeks. 2 weeks before the fight, and then 3 weeks before the fight is.
Arum didn't make it clear whether that was the injury he was referencing, but said Pacquiao consulted the same doctor who treated Bryant. Arum said Pacquiao's camp thought he would be allowed to have an anti-inflammatory shot because he had similar treatment during training. The shots also had been approved by the United States Anti-Doping Agency, but Arum said Top Rank filed incorrect paperwork about the injury, and the Nevada Commission ruled against the request for a shot. Francisco Aguilar, chairman of the Nevada Athletic Commission, said the Pacquiao team did not disclose the injury until Saturday night. So the requests for permission to take the shot and to have a personal doctor in Pacquiao's corner were denied.
And then 3 weeks before the fight, the pain is gone, so I able to raise my hands and move.
Did they say it was torn at that point?
The doctor said that there's a torn a little bit, but
"We were not aware of his injury until tonight at 6:30, said Aguilar, who made the ruling. The medications he was taking were disclosed on his medical questionnaire, but not the actual injury. This isn't our first fight. This is our business. There is a process, and when you try to screw with the process, it's not going to work for you." The Nevada Athletic Commission denied Manny Pacquiao's request to take an anti-inflammatory shot in his dressing room before facing off with Floyd Mayweather. After speaking to NSAC medical consultant Dr. Timothy Traynor and understanding what the request was, I made a decision not to allow it, given the timing of the request. Pacquiao's camp apparently hoped the fighter could compete without the shot. Despite Pacquiao's limitations, Arum said he didn't regret putting Pacquiao into the fight at less than full strength.
But if you decide to get operated after the fight, then it's okay. But it can be healed
With time.
with time.
Yes.
If you don't even need operation, but when I realized, the doctor said that. But in every training that
Athletes always fight hurt, Arum said. "We felt that the work that was done on the shoulder during training would give him the opportunity to use the right hand. We were disappointed when in the third round the injury kicked up again. But this is always the case with sports. You get guys injured in training. He then deals with the injury, he thinks he's conquered it, and then he gets re-injured in the game. It happens in football. It happens in any sport." Mayweather concurred with his former promoter, noting that he fought with injuries to both of his arms and hands. "If Pacquiao would have come out victorious, the only thing I could have got up here and said was, I have to show respect and say he was the better man," Mayweather said in his post-fight news conference. "Both my arms were injured.
But in every training that you have, it will come back, the pain.
So against Floyd in the ring that night, did you feel handicapped where you couldn't throw with that, that hand?
I feel like, disappointed in myself because when I'm throwing punches in the fourth round, because he's leaning on the rope.
Both my hands were injured, But as I've said before, I always find a way to win. The post-fight disclosure of Pacquiao's injury adds a legitimate angle to discussion of a rematch. Pacquiao demonstrably fought with only a portion of his usual punch output, and his inability to use his right hand consistently made it easier for Mayweather to control the fight. Roach was proud of his fighter's persistence through injury, but frustrated with Pacquiao's inability to implement his game plan, particularly his inability to throw a right hook. "It was a very close fight," Roach said. "We'd love to do it again, but hopefully that's in the future."
Not throwing punches in the fourth round because he's leaning on the rope and attacking him, starting my pressure to him. But I feel like when I throw my hands, I feel like I cut my hands. You know, I feel like I don't have my right hand. So,
Got it.
So I
you're
feel
basically fighting with one arm, one hand,
yes,
right?
Boxer Manny Pacquiao was then sued for his failure to disclose a shoulder injury during his fight of the century against Floyd Mayweather. Junior Reuters reports the lawsuit was filed by Stefan Vanel and Kami Rabaran in federal court in Nevada. It seeks compensation under laws meant to protect consumers and asks for status as a class action on behalf of ticket buyers, pay-per-view television viewers, and people who gambled on the fight. CNBC added that the plaintiffs are seeking $5 million. American Mayweather maintained his unbeaten record with the unanimous decision victory over Filipino Pacquiao in their unified welterweight bout in Las Vegas. The fight was the highest-grossing boxing match in history.
With one arm, one hand,
yes,
right?
And then I feel no pain because of your adrenaline is high. So, but I feel like I don't have a arm in my. I feel like it's cut.
Cut off.
Yeah, cut off.
I got it.
In
So
my right hand.
despite that, did you feel like you still won the fight on points because he ran?
But an hour after the fight, Pacquiao's promoter said the boxer had hurt his shoulder during training. As NPR's Tom Goldman reported after the fight, Pacquiao reportedly asked for a pain-killing shot before the fight but was denied by the Nevada Athletic Commission because Pacquiao had turned in a form saying he wasn't hurt. Pacquiao promoter Bob Arum said last night Pacquiao should have gotten the shot because in Arum's words, papers were filed 5 days ago asking for medication for the shoulder injury and that the commission was well aware that Pacquiao was hurt. At the very end of the press conference, Commission Chairman Francisco Aguilar announced what Arum said wasn't true. Pacquiao will reportedly undergo surgery this week for a rotator cuff tear.
Did you feel like you still won the fight on points because he ran from you so much?
When I reviewed the fight, I threw a lot of punches than him, and then I connected more than he connected. But you know, like I said, I know how to accept loss, and I respect it.
The Associated Press adds, the lack of disclosure will probably mean a fine and possibly a suspension for Pacquiao. He can afford both, with a payday that figures to exceed $100 million and a lengthy recovery time from shoulder surgery. According to World Boxing Council President Mauricio Suleiman, Pacquiao has been licensed by the Nevada State Athletic Commission and has passed all of the medical tests required to be reissued with a professional license.
Go.
Yet several members of the boxing fraternity remain concerned about the potential health implications Pacquiao faces as he gears up to make a comeback. The American was largely respectful towards a large proportion of his rivals, who he beat en route to his famous unblemished 50-0 professional record.
Oscar De La Hoya believes he won his fight against Mayweather.
Let me ask you this. I've heard you on several occasions say you feel that you beat Floyd in that fight.
Sure.
Why do you feel you won that fight?
You know, when you're a fighter inside the ring, when that final bell rings, you know it in your heart, in your gut, and physically, if you won or you lost. You just feel it. It's a sensation.
But there was one who he hated more than any of his other opponents. When asked exactly who that was, he replied quickly and bluntly, Oscar De La Hoya. Mayweather famously had a seismic tilt with De La Hoya for the World Boxing Council's super welterweight title in 2007. The bout was one of the most hotly anticipated in the modern era and became a booming commercial success as an event headlining Las Vegas. At the time, it was the most lucrative boxing bout in history, generating $130 million. It also brought in 4 million pay-per-view buys, another record.
Oscar was one guy that would do everything that I tell him to do. He wasn't no mouthy guy.
He too had suggested that his most disliked opponent was Manny given their rift. But nonetheless, the pair wrote their name in boxing rivalry and go down as two of the most gifted fighters in history. Despite how close their maiden meeting was, the pair were never able to organize a highly sought-after rematch. This was mainly because Mayweather initially retired before returning to boxing after De La Hoya hung up the gloves himself. And Mayweather's dad, who had been thrust into the rivalry given the corner controversy, believes that his son actually was fortunate to have been given the decision.
He wasn't no mouthy guy or anything like that. We never had that kind of problem. And then always, that's why I asked you where you were from. Always, every now and then I would go out there and jog with him and stuff like that. Stuff like that. But other than that,
he said, if you want to call fights by scoring, point system, who's throwing more punches, you had to give it to Oscar. If you're just going on a guy hitting a guy with single shots, you have to give it to my son. My son had good defense. He caught a lot of punches with his shoulder and his arm, but it's still about a guy throwing punches. If he touches you, he's scoring. I thought the fight was a close fight. It's just where the point system goes. If you look at the point system, who's touching who the most? You're gonna have to give it to Oscar if you're going by the point system.
Oscar been a good guy, and Oscar got ready to do a lot of stuff with people, and Oscar was one of the best.
Clearly, Mayweather Sr. should never have had to say this, as this was him choosing a rival over his son. Interestingly, he said it anyway, definitely because of how bad things have been between them. Perhaps one of the most impressive records in sporting history is that of Floyd Mayweather's 50-0 boxing career. Money Mayweather will go down in history for his bouts against the likes of Diego Corrales and Miguel Cotto, to name just two. However, there is one fight his own father, Floyd Mayweather Sr., claimed shouldn't have gone his son's way.
Taught you so much. You taught him so much, excuse me. Yes, what have you learned? What have you learned? Junior, excuse me.
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. At one time, we was coming up, we have never had.
In 2007, Mayweather was at the height of his powers. So far undefeated, it seemed he couldn't set a step wrong. Yet, in May of that year, he would step into the ring with global superstar Oscar De La Hoya. The combination of De La Hoya's aggressive forward style and Mayweather's elusive counterpunching opportunistic attacks created a fight for the ages. The fans also agreed. The fight shattered pay-per-view records at the time. Over 4 million people watched the fight, the viewing scores beating the previous one, 9 million records set by Evander Holyfield, Mike Tyson II. In the end, the fight went to the judges' scorecard, and the win was awarded via split decision to Money Mayweather, extending his professional record at the time to 38-0.
What do you think about Oscar? What do you remember about training?
But Oscar was the one guy that.
During the fight, Mayweather Sr. was giving input on HBO's broadcast when he shockingly revealed that his son should have lost the fight and therefore lost his unbeaten record. He said, "I'm just gonna be honest with you, man. If you want to call fights by scoring, point system, who's throwing more punches, you had to give it to Oscar. If you're just going on a guy hitting a guy with single shots, you have to give it to my son. My son had good defense, he caught a lot of punches with his shoulder and his arm, but it's still about a guy throwing punches. If he touches you, he's scoring. I thought the fight was a close fight. It's just where the point system goes. If you look at the point system, who's touching who the most, you're gonna have to give it to Oscar if you're going by the point system. Mayweather Sr. even announced that he had scored the fight against his son. In hindsight, this probably didn't help the roller coaster relationship the two shared.
He wasn't no mouthy guy. You know, he would do what I tell him to do. He wasn't no mouthy guy or anything like that. We never had that kind of problem.
While this may seem surprising, Mayweather Sr. had spent the last 5 years training De La Hoya and would have been in his corner that night if it weren't for issues over financial demands.
I can tell you that Oscar's been a good guy, and Oscar got ready to do a lot of this stuff with people. And
So there we have it. According to the man's own father, maybe Floyd Mayweather Jr. should have ended his career with a professional record of 49-1. And that's all for now. For the very best updates on news, moments, events, and actions in the world of boxing, stay connected with us by subscribing to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to turn on notifications to get notified when we drop quality contents like this. Until next time, peace out.